everyone, it's Alice, and today we're gonna take a look at some upcoming book releases. I've done a couple of these throughout the year, and this time we'll be taking a look at books coming out from September to the end of the year, and we have lots of exciting new books coming out. I can hear my bank account crying already. Well, we have a lot of books to get through, so we should probably just jump straight into it, starting with the books coming out next month. Firstly, for September, we have A Blood as Bright as the Moon, which is a vampire book, and I'm kind of interested in it because I would like to read more vampire books. I haven't read a lot of them, and I would like to read more. This one follows a main character who is a vampire, and I think all vampires are being hunted down by this secret society, which sounds intriguing, and she's a part of a clan, and the leader of that clan has come up with like a solution for their salvation, but that requires them leaving everything in their life behind, which our main character is maybe not ready to do. But then they're also being hunted, so it sounds like a little bit of a sticky situation. Secondly, we have The Maiden and Her Monster by Maddie Martinez, which is also fantasy horror, and this one follows a healer's daughter who lives in a village that is surrounded by these cursed woods. And I think one day someone from the church comes to the village and they don't heed the warnings of those cursed woods, and so they end up dying. And I think the main character's mother is accused of having something to do with it, so our main character has to go into the forest and find a monster to save her, which sounds very interesting. It's inspired by folklore and it has like sapphic romance to it, which I'm into, and I also really like this cover. It immediately makes me want to read it. Then we have a book coming out from Dan Brown. It's The Secret of Secrets, and I know that this author is not for everyone, but I actually really like his books. Which, like, I know, but I have a really good time when I'm reading them. Usually they have like an adventure feeling to them, and I just really enjoy them. They're just a good time, and sometimes that's all you want. This is the sixth book, I think, in the Robert Langdon series, which follows this professor who is like an expert in symbology, and he gets caught up in all of these different cases that usually involve like science and history and symbols, and usually there's some sort of murder. There's a murder in this one as well, and in the wake of that murder, I think this researcher who was about to publish this like manuscript that would upend like centuries of belief disappears, and somehow our main character, the professor, gets caught up in this. I don't really know why. I read something about a secret society though, and I love secret societies in books, and I don't know, I'm just excited to read this. It also actually comes out on my birthday, and I usually go to the bookstore on my birthday, which, you know, I think we all know what's gonna happen. Actually, a lot of these books are coming out on my birthday, which I think is gonna be a problem. We also have a new book coming out from ML Rio. It's called Hot Wax, and a part of this is set in 1989, where this 10-year-old girl decides to join her father, who I think is in some sort of band, and he's on tour. So she decides to join him after her mother remarries. And while she's on that tour, something terrible happens, and she's the only witness to it. And then we meet her years later, I think maybe even decades later, and something happens that sort of stirs that back up. I don't really know what has happened, but it sounds intriguing, and I really want to read more from this author, so I'm definitely interested in this one. For this next one, it was the cover that caught my eye. It's a little unsettling, but I think I like it. It's The Macabre by Kosoko Jackson, and this one is apparently a blend of art history, dark horror, and globe-hopping adventure, which obviously sounds perfect for me. It's about a painter, I think, who gets approached by the British Museum, and he thinks that they want to display his paintings, but it actually turns out to be a test of like whether he has the magical capabilities to enter his paintings or something like that. It sounds very weird, but very interesting, and apparently there are a lot of secrets and like mysterious museum officials, and I don't know, but I really like the premise of this. It sounds really cool. Next, we have Life and Death and Giants by Rondo, and this is like a literary fiction book that sounds a little bit different from anything else I've ever read. It follows this boy who, when he's born, he's huge, and no one in the town where he's born really knows what to make of him because he's a really big baby. He starts walking at like 8 months old, it says he can talk to animals, and he has a lot of athletic abilities. And then I think his brother is caring for him, and then his brother dies. And so he's taken in by an Amish family. And this Amish family kind of just wants to hide him away, which is a little bit difficult because he turns out, like, when he grows up, I think he grows up to be like 2.4 meters tall or something. I don't know what that is in feet. I think maybe like 8 feet. Sounds like a lot, but he's like a really big guy. And one day he's spotted by a local football coach, and this changes his whole life. I just thought this sounded interesting and just a little bit different from anything else I've ever read. Then we're back with more horror with You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. And I don't know if I'm fully grasping what this book is about, but I think it's about an alien invasion of the Earth. And I think maybe the aliens are worms? I, I may have misunderstood something along the way here, but I think maybe. Either way, these aliens, they make some sort of deal with these desperate humans, and I'm not entirely sure what the humans need to do, but at some point one of them gets pregnant, and the aliens, they demand to have the baby, like, for whoever is pregnant to give them the baby, which obviously sounds really disturbing. And I wonder if this is going to really freak me out. I don't know, but I've seen some early reviews for this and it sounds very interesting. So I feel like maybe I should give it a go, but I am a little bit worried that it's going to freak me out too much. Moving on to something that I think might be a little bit lighter, it's 7 Reasons to Murder Your Dinner Guests by KJ Whittle. And this is a mystery where these 7 people are invited to a dinner, and I don't think they know each other, and they don't even know who has invited them. But they go to this dinner, and during the dinner, each of them is given a card, and on that card is the exact age that they will be when they die. And that's obviously weird, but I think like most of us would do. They're just like, I don't know what this is, and they just go on with their lives. And then 2 weeks later, someone that got that card dies exactly when the card said that they were gonna die. And this spurs the other guests into motion to try to figure out who's behind this and what's happening. And I just thought this sounded like a little bit of a different kind of mystery, so I'm very intrigued by this one. Then we have a book that says it has like dark academia vibes, and you all know how much I love that. It's The Bells by Lacey Dunham, and this is set in 1951 at this secluded college, which is famous for its strict rules and prestige. And our main character is a new student there, and she's just trying to fit in with her wealthy classmates. And I think she makes friends with these 4 or 5 other girls. I think they all live on the same floor or something. And they become friends, and then they catch like the attention of one of the professors or teachers or something, and this sort of takes their sisterhood to another level. And they seem to be like, it sounds a little cult-ish, like they all dress the same, they're always matching, they're up to no good, they're really pushing the boundaries. And that's all I really know. I think it sounds interesting. I love any book with like an academic setting, like dark academia vibes, and it sounds like the kind of book that's about sort of obsession. Next, we have one that just sounds a little bit wild. It's The Austen Affair by Madeline Bell, which follows 2 feuding co-stars who are filming a Jane Austen adaptation, and they like somehow end up time traveling back to the Regency era, and they get stuck there with only each other to rely on. And I just think that sounds so funny. This is like a historical fiction romance, so there is, I can sort of guess where this is going, but even though I'm not the biggest romance fan, I do love Jane Austen, and I love like time travel in books. So I think this could just be fun, even if it's not like the best book I've ever read. I just think it's gonna be like a funny book to read. Then we're back with more horror with Fiend by Alma Katsu, and this is about this family that runs like the world's largest import-export company, and that family has always been very lucky. Like, their rivals suffer and die, like inconvenient buildings catch on fire, and like evidence is somehow always destroyed in like earthquakes or natural disasters, and it's all very convenient. And I think we're following the three children of the patriarch, and I don't really know what happens, but something happens where I think maybe their luck runs out and everything's turned upside down. And I don't really know how the horror elements come into this, but it sounds a little haunting, and I have a feeling it's going to end up being really bloody. We have a very colorful cover for this next one. It's The Many Mothers of Dolores Moore, which I just really like the title of. This is one of those contemporary books where we're meeting a woman in her 30s who's at a crossroads in her life. She has no family left, and I think she travels to Colombia to sort of discover her roots or something like that. And apparently there is a magical realism element in this story, although I don't really know how that shows up. Next, we have a sequel. It's the sequel to Bunny, actually, which is a book that I really, really like. It's called We Love You, Bunny by Mona Awad. And in the first book, Bunny, we meet this student who is a part of this highly selective writers program at university, and she is in class with these girls who are all best friends, and they're kind of weird, and they all call each other Bunny, and they host these like evenings where eventually our main character gets invited, and things just get very strange. In this one, the main character has published her first book, and I'm guessing that she put those girls into that book because it says that these girls are furious as to how they were portrayed, and so they end up kidnapping her, and we sort of see the story from their sides, I guess. I'm sort of in two minds about this one. To be honest, I don't really feel like Bunny needs a sequel, so I don't really know how to feel about it. So I'm just gonna see about this one. I'll see what other people are saying in their reviews, and then maybe I'll read it. I don't really know. Maybe it's really good. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like most books don't really need sequels, but yeah. Maybe it's good. A sequel I do want to read, though, is Thief of Night by Holly Black, which is the sequel to Book of Night, which that book is one of those books where I ended up like really enjoying the reading experience of that book, and I had a really good time with it. I loved like the vibes and the atmosphere, but it's also one of those books that I don't really know how to defend the fact that I liked it so much, because there are like arguably a lot of things to that book that maybe didn't work that well. But for some reason, I read that book and I just really liked it. Maybe I was just in the mood for it, but for some reason, it worked for me, even though it shouldn't have. These books are set in a world where shadows can be altered, and our main character used to be like a part of an underworld of shadow trading, but she's left that world behind, but then something happens in the first book where she's sort of dragged back into it. And I have no idea what happens in the second book, but I don't know. I just want to read it. On to a mystery book. We have 640 to Montreal, and this one caught my eye because I love a good book about a murder on a train. I can never get enough of them, and this is one of them. This follows a writer who decides to take this particular train ride to get away from all distractions so they can just write, and all they'll be distracted by is like a pretty view. And then the train breaks down in the middle of the Canadian wilderness and someone dies. We've got another interesting cover for this next one. It's Slashed Beauties by A. Rushby. And this is historical fiction horror, and it has two timelines. And both of these timelines revolve around these three female wax figures that come alive at night, which sounds super spooky, really creepy, but I am intrigued. I think the timelines are set in different times. I don't know what times, but one is set in London and one is set in Seoul, I think. And I just thought this sounded quite spooky. It reminds me a little bit of like the Silent Companions, like I'm getting that sort of vibe, although I think the atmosphere will be quite different and like the setting. But I'm intrigued by this one. I really want to read it, but I am scared that it's like too scary for me. We also have a new book coming out from Janice Hallett. It's The Killer Question. And I really like this author's books. She writes like epistolary mysteries, so the whole book is like written in different forms of correspondence. And at least her previous books have been like that, so I'm just guessing this one will be the same. The mystery revolves around this particular pub that has like weekly trivia nights. And I think something happens on one of those nights, and then also like a body is found in a river next to that pub. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter to me, to be honest, because I'll read anything this author writes because I just really, really like her books. This next one I am obviously super, super excited about, and this won't be a surprise if you've been on this channel a lot. It's The Impossible Fortune by Richard Osman, which is the fifth, I think, book in the Thursday Murder Club series, which follows a group of pensioners who live in this retirement village and keep getting caught up in all kinds of mysteries. And I love the series so much. I think these books are so cozy, but also clever and just super enjoyable. So I'm really excited that he's written another one. I sort of thought that the series was over, but I guess he's going at it again, which is very exciting, and I have no idea what the mystery in here is about. I'm gonna read it anyway, and I'm sure it's gonna be just such a good time. Then we have a festive book, actually. It's The 12 Days of Christmas by Susan Stokes-Chapman. And this cover was just too beautiful not to include. I, as maybe some of you know, I'm a huge Grinch. And so I'm not like a Christmas person, but this might be so beautiful that it's gonna make me want to read it. And I do actually quite like sort of festive short stories, so I think I might actually like this one. It's also just so gorgeous. I want to get my hands on it like immediately. But I don't really know what these stories are about. I think they're historical fiction, and I think they're all set in the same village, which is intriguing. The cover for this next one is also really pretty. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this title though. It's either Hekate or Hekate. I only know how to pronounce it in Norwegian, which is not very helpful. But this is a book by Nikita Gill, which I have only read her poetry. I've never read anything longer by her, so I'm excited to see this coming out. It's like a mythology retelling, obviously, about this goddess who I don't really know much about, but I think she's associated with witchcraft. And I did read something about like necromancy, which sounds intriguing. That's all I really know about this one, and I really like this author's poetry, so I'm really excited to see like what the writing style will be in a longer format. I think it's going to be beautiful. Next, we're back with some more fantasy horror with A Land So Wide by Aaron Craig, which is set at a small settlement on the edge of the American continent, which has a lot of natural resources, which is why this rich Scottish lumber merchant first set up this settlement. And I think there are like monsters surrounding it. And the first people who were there, they made a deal with some sort of force to keep the monsters out, at the cost of anyone who spends a night there have to stay there for the rest of their lives. Which obviously sounds a little spooky. And I think our main character, the person that we're following, wants to get out, which is understandable. Next, we have a book with an academic setting, which I'm always interested in. It's Guilty by Definition by Susie Dent. And this is set at Oxford, but I don't actually think it's set at the university. I think it's set in a place or like a building that all the people who work there are in charge of, like the Oxford Dictionary or something. And one day a letter arrives that's very mysterious and it has something to do with a disappearance. I'm not entirely sure, but I love a book with an academic setting, so I just thought this looked interesting. Then we have a novella in a series I'm reading. It's What Stalks the Deep by T. Kingfisher, and you may know that I'm a huge fan of this author, and this is the third book in the Sworn Soldier series. I've read the first one, and it was really creepy, but like deliciously creepy, I would say. And the series follows this retired soldier who sort of gets up to all kinds of different things. And there are a lot of horror elements in these books. I haven't read the second one yet, but I'm really excited to, and I am excited to read this one as well. I just love this author so much. She can do me no wrong. Lastly, for September, and yes, so far we've only made it through September. There's just so many books coming out. But this last one is a contemporary book that I'm really excited to see. It's Cursed Daughters by Oyinkan Braithwaite. And this author wrote My Sister the Serial Killer, which I thought was a really interesting book, and I'm excited to see something else come out from her. This one is about this woman who I think she's from a cursed family, and she bears like a crazy resemblance to her dead aunt. And so I think the family thinks that she's the reincarnation of that aunt. And I'm not entirely sure what the curse is or what's going to happen in this book, but it sounds and looks very interesting. And I'm just interested to read something else from this author. Moving on to October, first we have The Resurrectionist by Kathleen S. Allen, which has an interesting cover for sure. This one is set in Victorian times, where this woman, after her father dies, she somehow unleashes some sort of monster, and she finds a book that contains steps on like how to resurrect someone, and this drags her into like a dark underworld of corpse stealing and grave robbing and all kinds of dark things. And I thought this sounded interesting. I really like books like these, usually. I am guessing based on the cover, though, that this isn't like a super serious book. Secondly, for October, we have The Sacred and the Divine by Kate Christensen. And this one is set in 1848, I think, and we meet three sisters who have, I think, some supernatural powers, and they are experts in tarot cards, and they specialize in different things. One specializes in the past, one in the present, and one in the future. And I think that somehow they end up unleashing a monster upon their little town, which obviously sounds a little bit unfortunate, but I think it could be fun to read about. Another cool looking cover for this next one, we have The Salvage by Anbara Salam. And what drew me to this is that it follows a marine archaeologist in 1962 who goes to Scotland to explore a like Victorian shipwreck. Do I need to know anything more than that? No. But there is also mention of like a monster lurking in this shipwreck, and I just think that sounds fantastic. Then we have another retelling. It's Witch Killer by Ashley Latimer, and I really like the cover for this one as well. It's a retelling of Hansel and Gretel, and I think this is set like after the events of the fairy tale, and I think the girl is really struggling with what happened, and she has like dreams about it and stuff, and somehow she gets involved with these witches, and through that she questions what actually happened that night, if it was right or not, and maybe like actually her family is like involved in this whole thing. And it just sounds very interesting. I've never read a retelling or like a reworking of Hansel and Gretel, so I think that could be cool. We have more horror with Rainforest by Michelle Paver, which caught my eye in part because of the cover and in part because I think maybe there might be a little bit of adventure in this, and I'm always looking for any books with adventure in them. It follows an Englishman who ventures into the rainforest, I think to get away from everything. And I think he has some secrets and some dark stuff going on, and he just wants to run away. And then gets into the rainforest, and things get a little spooky and freaky. And I think maybe there are ghosts in there. I don't know, but it sounds interesting. Then we have a book that I am very excited about, but I'm also very nervous that it's gonna scare me a lot. It's House of Splinters by Laura Purcell. And this is, I'm not entirely sure if it's a sequel to The Silent Companions or if it's just like in the same world. I'm pretty sure it's set in the same setting, so they are linked somehow. And, you know, The Silent Companions, that book really freaked me out. That's about as much horror as I can take in a book, really, and I made the mistake of like finishing it when it was really dark outside, and it really freaked me out. These books are set at this remote house where there are these wooden companions that like people used to use back in the day for like dinner parties and stuff. And these wooden companions, at least in the first book, when they discover them in the attic, they sort of let them loose in a way, and they keep like appearing in places and no one knows who put them there, and it's all really freaky. And I think in this book, a family moves into this house thinking it's a really great opportunity for them because it's like a huge estate, and I'm guessing things get a little bit scary, just like they did in the first book. I'm really intrigued to read this, and I'm curious as to how it like links with the first book. I also love this cover. Like, this cover design is excellent. This next one also has an interesting cover. It's The Works of Vermin by Heron Ennis. And this is also fantasy horror, and it says it's set in a city that's in like a tree stump or something, and we're following an exterminator. I can't figure out if he's human or not. I'm guessing maybe not, since they're all living in a tree stump, but it's like a whole city in this tree stump. And I think he comes across, like, in his work, at some point he comes across a monster that threatens the life of everyone in the city and the city itself, and that's what the story is about. I'm very intrigued as to this, like, magical world, and I wonder what sort of creatures we're gonna meet in here. Next, we have a book that says it's like a mix between The Witcher and Howl's Moving Castle, and if it's anything like that, I think it's gonna be great. It's Kill the Beast by Sarah Swift, and this one is fantasy, and it's set, I don't think it's set in our world, it's set in like a fantasy world, and our main character is obsessed with avenging the death of her brother, and she's hunting down the monster that killed him, but she's also hunting down the people who created that monster, specifically fairies, I think. And on like her hunt one day, she meets someone, this rich guy, who's a little bit like all over the place, but he has some information that could really help her, and they end up going on some sort of adventure together, I think. I don't quite know what to expect from this one, but I think it's a little bit on the cozier side of things. It seems that way, and I love a good adventure, so I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to this next one. It's The Witching Hour, which is an anthology, and it's in the same sort of series of anthologies as The Haunting Season and The Winter Spirits. And this one obviously has like an autumnal theme and like witches and stuff. And I read The Haunting Season last year and I really, really enjoyed it. So I'm guessing I'm really gonna like this one as well. I have The Winter Spirits and I really want to read it, but this one just sounds very autumnal. It has stories from all kinds of different authors, and yeah, I think it's gonna be really good. I feel like with short stories, sometimes anthologies can be a little bit difficult, but I felt like in The Haunting Season it really worked and it was very well curated, so I have really high hopes for this one. All of these books are also beautiful as well, like the cover design is beautiful, which is an added bonus. Then we have more cozy fantasy with A Curious Kind of Magic by Mara Rutherford, and this follows a teenager who runs a sort of magical curiosity shop, although most of the things in there aren't actually magical, and then she comes into contact with this other girl who I think she's cursed to make like anything she touches into a magical object, and they sort of come together. Do we need to know more than that? I don't think so, but there is mention of a quest in here, and I love a good book with a good quest. Back on the horror train though, we have King's Sorrow by Joe Hill, which I also think has an academic setting. Actually, it's set at a college in Maine, and our main character one day gets cornered into doing like the worst thing that he can imagine, which is stealing rare books from the library. And I don't know why he ends up doing this, but I think he recruits some friends to help him, and for some reason they end up summoning a dragon. I don't know how that's helpful, but I mean, dragons are pretty cool, so I think that could be an interesting element to this. But I did also read something about maybe there needing to be human sacrifices to summon this dragon, which is less cool. But it sounds interesting. Like, it could be an interesting story. We have another great cover for this next one. It's My Lips, Her Voice by LL Madrid. And this sounds a little bit insane. It's about two sisters who I think comes from a line of like women having visions and like different kinds of powers, and I think they are the only people left in their family, and then one of the sisters dies, and I think the dead sister starts like possessing the living sister, and things get really freaky. That premise sounds horrifying, but I think like it could be a really cool setup, and I wonder where the story's gonna go. Next, we have another one set at a mysterious school. It's The Library of Lost Girls by Kristen Phipps, and this one follows this girl whose sister is sent away to this particular like school that's very prestigious, and when she comes back from that school she comes back totally changed. Like it's not like she doesn't even recognize her sister. And then the younger sister wants to find out what happened, and the way that she decides to do that is to go to that school herself. And this school is set at like some sort of icy remote island, and she goes there and she tries to figure out what is going on in the school, and all the students are really secretive. They're told not to go out after dark, and everything is just very weird. Sounds great, and sounds a little bit dark academia, which I love. Another excellent cover for this next one, it's The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow, and I actually have a book by this author unread on my shelves that everyone keeps telling me that I should read. I think it's called Sterling House or Starling House or something like that. And that one also has an excellent cover, and I really need to read it. And I should probably read it before I get this one, but I still kind of want to get this one right away. This one is about, like, there is something about a legend of this particular knight who like helped build a nation, and then decades later or like centuries later people are like singing songs, and it's like this huge legend, and we meet someone who falls in love with this person in their time, and they end up traveling back in time to meet this knight. And that sounds a little insane, but I really like the setup of that. I also really like when books have like time travel elements, so I really want to read this one. I should read that other book first, but we'll see. Lastly, for October, we have The Graceview Patient by Caitlin Starling, and again, I really like the cover for this one. This is horror, I think, and it follows this patient who has a really rare disease that leaves her isolated, but then one day she's offered like a fully paid spot at this particular place that can offer her some sort of experimental treatment, and then she gets there and things are not as they seem, and it sounds kind of spooky. Okay, we're nearing the end now, folks. We've made it to November, where first up we have this coming out. This is The House Saphir by Marissa Meyer, and the thing that drew me to this one is that it's a witch book. It follows a main character who comes from a long line of witches, but her only magical ability is the ability to see ghosts, which isn't like super helpful. And I think that her and I think her sister, they run this little shop and they sell like sort of like fake spells and stuff, and they do tours of this mansion where these infamous murders took place, and that's how they survive. And then one day they're approached by this wealthy guy who wants to rid his estate of these ghosts, and they decide to go, and I don't think it's as simple as that, but it sounds like a fun like ghosty witchy, and like a story with ghosts in it. I don't think ghosty is a word. Then we have another sequel, and I'm super excited about this one, as I know a lot of people are. It's Brigands and Bread Knives by Travis Baldree, which is the sequel to Legends and Lattes. And I love that book. It's one of my favorite like cozy fantasy books, and I think this one follows a character that we meet in the prequel, actually, which I still haven't read, but it's on my shelves waiting for me. And I really just want to read that book so that when this comes out, I can get it and read it right away. Yet another sequel that's super exciting is The Strength of the Few by James Islington, and this is the sequel to The Will of the Many, which I read, was it this year? I think earlier this year, or like it wasn't too long ago, and I really really liked that book. In the first book we meet our main character who lives in this like fantasy world, and his whole family has basically been murdered by the current system in place, and no one knows who he is, no one knows that he is a survivor of that family, and he decides to enter like the elite academy in this place to uncover some things, and he wants revenge, but he's also there for some other reasons. It's kind of complicated. I don't want to give anything away, but the first book, it was really good, and it ended on quite a note. Like, the ending really caught me off guard. I don't think anyone can see the ending of that coming, but it made me super curious as to how things are gonna go in the second book, because I don't know how you really follow up from that, but it's gonna be very interesting. I think it's gonna be really, really good. I hope it's as good as the first book. I'm sure it will be. Next, we have another book coming out from T. Kingfisher. She really writes a lot of books, which makes me so happy because she's one of my favorites. This is called Snake Eater, and it follows this woman who is sort of desperate, like she needs to get away from her life, and she decides to seek out an old aunt of hers, and she lives in this little village, but when she gets there, she finds out that the aunt is dead. And I think she ends up staying there anyway because the townsfolk are really happy to have her there, almost like suspiciously happy to have her there. And it turns out that the townsfolk, they live alongside like these old gods, and it seems like the old gods want something from our main character. I don't really know what to expect from this, but I just want to read everything this author writes. All the books that I've read by her, like, she never disappoints me. We have more fantasy after that with Fallen City by Adrienne Young, which is set in a huge walled city. And I think that we're following two characters in the city. One is a man who knows his only purpose is to carry on the family name, and the other is a woman who ends up becoming the face of a rebellion in the city. And I think the two of them fall in love, which really throws things up in the air. I'm excited about this one. I really want to read something from this author. She really intrigues me. I think I have one of her books on my shelves actually. And again, I should probably read that first because I haven't gotten to it yet. This next one caught my eye because, like I mentioned, I really like time travel in books. It's A Time Traveler's History of Tomorrow by Kendall Culper. And this is a romance book, so this could go both ways for me, but again, I just love like time travel books. It's about these two people who I think meet at the Chicago World Fair in 1924, and then they interact with some sort of time machine and they end up back in 1893. And again, all they have is really each other. That's all I know. It sounds interesting, and I do like historical fiction romance. I think probably better than contemporary romance, so I think this could work for me. Lastly, we have a few books coming out in December as well. The first one I have is Persephone's Curse, which caught my eye because it's a little witchy. It follows four sisters who are descendants of Persephone, and they live in a brownstone in Manhattan, and they have like a friendly ghost in the attic, and I think one of the sisters ends up falling in love with the ghost, and then another sister thinks this is ridiculous and decides to banish the ghost to the underworld, and so they end up going there to try to get him back, I think, which sounds like such a good premise. Then at the very end we have another dark academia book. It's An Arcane Inheritance by Camilla Cole, and this is set at an Ivy League school where like the school's history is deeply linked with the occult and dark secrets, and we meet this new student who starts there, and she's just trying to survive at this place and fit in, but she keeps being hit with like a sense of deja vu, and this like convinces her that she must have been there before. That premise sounds really good, and again, anything with dark academia vibes, I'm up for. That was the last book on my list though. We're finally at the end. That was a lot of books, but there were just so many exciting ones, and I would love to hear if you're excited to read any of these books, if there are any new ones that you're interested in, or any books that I haven't mentioned that you're really excited about. I would love to hear about it. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!